Deuteronomy chapter 9, and in our one-sentence summary, this is the part where he says, because I did not choose you, because of your righteousness, remember how you failed me by worshiping the golden calf, and in fact at Kadesh Barnea. So you come to our first paragraph, and here is one of those times where he says, "Hear, O Israel," but nobody really pays much attention to this. Just like in the Shema, "Hear, O Israel," God's trying to get their attention. It says, "You are now about to cross the Jordan to go in and dispossess nations greater and stronger than you, with large cities that have walls up to the sky. The people are strong and tall, Anakites. You know about them and have heard it said, 'Who can stand up against the Anakites?' But be assured today that Yahweh your God is the one who goes across ahead of you like a devouring fire. He will destroy them, he will subdue them before you, and you will drive them out and annihilate them quickly, as Yahweh has promised you." Now, think about this. Hear, O Israel, you're going to go up and you're going to fight these guys that are bigger and stronger than you, but I'm the one who's going to win the battle for you, okay? And you're to annihilate them. Most of us don't tend to think about annihilation being part of God's program, but really it is, at least in this historic setting. Because these people had 450 years to repent, and they had consistently rejected God's law and just gotten worse and worse and worse. In Abraham's day, God wouldn't have wiped them out. In Abraham's day, in Genesis 15, when he makes the prophecy of what's going to happen to Israel, he says, your children are going to go into slavery for 400 years, and when they come out of that slavery, I'm going to have you wipe out the Amorites or the Canaanites, okay, because their wickedness will have grown so bad. So in Abraham's day, they weren't that bad. God gave them 450 years to repent, and they didn't. They just got worse and worse and worse. Now he goes on, and in this next paragraph, I want you to pay attention to something, because he's going to repeat it 3 times. It's a balanced sentence. It's going to be repeated 3 times in one paragraph. After Yahweh your God has driven them out from before you, do not say to yourself, Yahweh has brought me here to take possession of this land because of my righteousness. No, it is on account of the wickedness of these nations that Yahweh is going to drive them out before you. Now, that's number 1. Not because you're good, it's because they're so bad. Verse 5. It is not because of your righteousness or your integrity that you're going to go in to take possession of their land, but on account of the wickedness of these nations. Yahweh your God will drive them out before you to accomplish what he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's number 2. Okay, again, not because you're so good, you're not special, okay? You're special because I chose you, not because you're special on your own. Okay, verse 6. Understand then that it is not because of your righteousness that Yahweh your God is giving you this good land to possess, for you are a stiff-necked people. Now, if someone told you that, do you think you'd feel real special? I mean, God's kind of putting them in their place. Okay, I'm doing this for you, for your good, and I'm giving you the commandments for your good, but I'm not giving you this land because you're so good. Okay, it's because these guys are so bad that I'm going to replace the bad with you. And the goal is that you should become a good people and possess this land.
It comes to mind, it's the expression lesser of 2 evils.
Yes, the lesser of 2 evils in a sense, except God has a plan, so there's not really. But it kind of makes me think of Peter. Y'all read the Gospels about Peter. Does Peter ever do anything right? Well, eventually he may, but he usually does it, in a roundabout way by first sticking his foot in his mouth. Okay? And it's just like with Peter. I used to look at Peter and go, if Jesus can use Peter, he can use me. Because Peter comes across in a lot of ways like this bumbling fool who clearly is an alpha male. He's leaping out there wanting to do something, and he consistently does the wrong thing. Okay? And if God can use that kind of person, then of course he can use me. Of course, I don't know if I really rate Peter as he really was, but that's at least gives us hope. Now, if God can use the Israelites, who he's out there, and 3 times he tells them, it's not because you're good, it's because they're bad. Okay, and yet you have the blessing because I promised it to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay, in a sense, it's almost like, well, you're just lucky enough to be their descendants. Okay, and I've treated you so well. I've brought you out of Egypt. I brought the plagues on the Egyptians because they were bad. And I brought you out here, and I'm going to take these people out because they're bad. But don't think it's because you're so good.
And this is what they're getting us through Moses.
Right, this is Moses speaking to them.
This is Moses speaking to them. So they're looking at this man, you know, I'm
And this
just
is
trying to
after-
picture this.
This is after Moses has spent 40 years with them. And he's telling them, you already stiff-necked people.
Yeah,
I know, I've
yeah.
been with you for the last 40 years.
Okay, you know.
And he's already told them it wasn't because of his righteousness either.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, and now he's going to remind them about why they shouldn't think they're so good. Verse 7. Remember this and never forget that you aroused the anger of Yahweh your God in the wilderness. From the day you left Egypt until you arrived here, you have been rebellious against Yahweh. At Horeb, you aroused Yahweh's wrath so that he was angry enough to destroy you. When I went up on the mountain to receive the tablets of stone, the tablets of the covenant that Yahweh had made with you, I stayed on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. I ate no bread and drank no water. Yahweh gave me 2 stone tablets inscribed by the finger of God. On them were all the commandments Yahweh proclaimed to you on the mountain out of the fire on the day of the assembly. Okay. Now, he's telling them to remember something. You know, we talked about remembering the good things God has done. Sometimes it's important to remember how we have failed so that we don't do it again. Israel constantly fell into idolatry and pagan worship up until the Babylonian captivity. After that, they learned their lesson. They didn't go back to idols anymore. Okay, historically, the Jews never returned to idolatry after that. In fact, when they returned from Babylon, they were just vicious against the idea of any kind of idolatry coming in because they didn't want to go back to Babylon again. Okay, and even when the might of Rome takes over Israel and they march in, this little people rose up against them and told them to get their idols out of their country. And it didn't matter how many thousands of them the Romans killed, the Jews said the idols aren't coming in. And the Romans got to the point where they said, hey, you know something? It's not worth the hassle. We'll keep our idols over here, okay? We won't, desecrate your land. Why? Because they had learned their lesson. So sometimes it's good to remember your failures so you don't repeat them.
Oh, yeah.
Until 70 AD.
Well, they still didn't bring idols in. They made an idol out of money, so it was an abstract idol, but they didn't bring idols in worship. Okay, so it's the same sin in different guise, but yeah, they messed up again. But they did learn that one lesson: don't bow down to idols. Okay, and notice it. If you ever wonder what the covenant is, it's what's written on the 2 tablets of stone. What's on the 2 tablets of stone?
10 Commandments.
The 10 Commandments. Okay, so when you ask yourself the question, what is the covenant? That's the covenant.
Yep.
Okay.
That was kept in the Ark of the Covenant.
Right, it's amazing, yeah. Verse 11. At the end of the 40 days and 40 nights, Yahweh gave me the 2 stone tablets, the tablets of the covenant. Then Yahweh told me, go down from here at once, because your people whom you have brought out of Egypt have become corrupt. They have turned away quickly from what I commanded them, and have made an idol for themselves. And again, notice the correlation between the word corrupt and idol. Okay, what is corruption? It's following an idol, following a false god. Now, this is the first 40 days that he fasts. Now, again, can someone go without food for 40 days?
No.
On their own? No.
Not typically.
Not on their own. But he says he did it twice.
Well,
That would be
the
80
body
days.
starts to deteriorate and your mind starts to go
You
idle.
can go without food for 40 days, but you can't go without water.
Right.
Yeah, she's right.
And if you have enough reserves, you can go 40 days. Some people probably can't go 40 days. But yeah, you could go up to 40 days without food, but not without water. What's water, about 3 days?
Well, it's 3 days, but that lady that was what was her name, that, they pulled the tube on
Oh,
her in
yeah.
Miami?
Oh.
Kathleen, what was her name?
Oh, yeah,
I know who
okay.
you're talking
The
about, the lady in
controversy, yeah.
Florida.
Yeah, she lived 2 weeks without water.
Pinellas County, I
Yeah.
think, Tampa or Pinellas County.
Okay, and that's till death. Of course, she wasn't doing very much either.
She was laying in a bed.
Right.
So
Vegetative state.
So, yeah, you can go 2 weeks without water. That's way short of 40 days. Now, how is it that Moses survives?
He's in the presence of the living God, though. That's just what's sustaining him.
He's in the presence of God.
Who is
Okay.
the great healer and creator.
Yeah, he's a great healer and creator. I think it's actually, that's barking up the right tree. I think that the essence of it is, God is life,
There you go.
okay?
He is the living water.
Right. He is the very substance of life itself.
Yeah.
Okay, all life comes out from him, okay? Moses is in the presence of the pure essence of life, and he's absorbing this. And how do we know he's absorbing this?
He had to have, he'd have died.
Well, yeah, but how do we know?
they
that he's-
said his face was light.
Right, he comes down off the mountain and he glows. He's actually absorbed the essence of God into himself. And the essence fades as time goes by, okay? But he comes down from the mountain and he glows because he's been in the presence of God. He's absorbed life. And so he doesn't need the physical things to sustain life. He's got the pure thing itself, okay? And that's how you explain this miracle, because like Ron pointed out, he begins with 40 days, and he comes down off of the mountain, and he's walking out of this cloud of fire and smoke, okay, which seems kind of freaky, okay? But at the end of the 40 days, he comes down out of the cloud of fire and smoke, and he breaks the tablets because the people have been worshiping idols. Verse 13, and Yahweh said to me, I have seen this people, and they are a stiff-necked people indeed. Let me alone, so that I may destroy them, and blot out their name from under the heaven. And I will make you into a nation stronger and more numerous than they. Okay, sounds like a pretty good offer to me.
Yeah. He had to be a real saint, so to speak, to turn it down. I mean,
Yeah.
talk about temptation.
Yeah, and Moses would have then superseded Abraham as the father of the Israelites. He would become the father of the nation. And it's odd to me that God says, I'll make a stronger and more numerous people than you. Well, in the back of my head, I'm kind of going like, well, if he starts this late, I mean, you've got 6 million people here. He's going to start with Moses and then do even bigger things. Well, what's slowing down the Israelites from growing at the same rate? Well, obviously it would have been God's blessing. But I think this is a test. And
Could be.
Yeah,
And
just
40
now,
years ago, he probably took it too.
it's just now, it came to me, it's like, well, we know what he said, because, you know, people, well, Egypt's gonna think about you if you do that, but Moses was also probably thinking, wait, I wanna start all over with babies, and now I gotta take this much, oh, I don't wanna wait that much longer anymore. I've already done 40 years with these people, another 40
so
years?
Moses is right near death, so he's not going to be waiting much longer anyway, I don't think.
Yeah, that was
But-
40 years before.
But
But
even-
I think the real test is, are you operating on a profit motive? I used to have a pastor named Jerry Mobley. We had a home church named Ecclesia. And we had about 50 people every Sunday, and we were sitting on the couch and the floor and everywhere else. And he always asked himself the question, when he went to do something, do I have a profit motive for this? In other words, is there something, am I doing this because there's something in it for me? And if he felt that he had a profit motive, he wouldn't move. He would just wait, and then to see if God let him do something where he didn't have a profit motive. Because if it's about you, it's going to be corrupted. You know, if it's simply for the Lord, then it'll work out much better. You know, right actions, right attitude. He always made sure he had a right attitude. And if he's halfway through doing something and he discovered a profit motive, he'd stop, or he'd step aside and let someone else take it over. Okay, and I think God's testing Moses for a profit motive. Are you doing this for me, or are you doing it for you? As we read through the chapter, we're going to find out that Moses is really not doing it for himself.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, that's the way Solomon was in the beginning, when God says, what would you that I grant you?
Yeah,
He
Right.
said, wisdom.
in the beginning.
Yeah, well, he asked for the right thing, so God blessed him for it.
Right, and you see the same pattern. A lot of people, as they're younger, start off with the right motives,
Yeah.
and then they get corrupted along the way.
Yeah.
Now, I've had a constant prayer for the last 40 years. that God would not let me start out with right motives and then go downhill or disgrace him because of some sin or something, but that he would wait until I was ready,
Yeah.
okay? And then make the end of my life blessed rather than the blessed and downhill side.
Yeah.
I'd rather have it end up on a good note.
Yeah.
Tell
Okay.
God.
Oh, reminds me, got a fortune cookie last night. And it says, many people will seek you out for your wisdom and insight.
Yay!
And I said, well, it hadn't happened yet. And Mariah goes, well, fortune cookies are about the future, not the past.
Fortune cookies are asking for the wrong person too, in my book.
I didn't hear that.
Fortune cookies are asking from the wrong person in my book.
Yeah,
Asking from the wrong person?
from the wrong person.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, computer-generated messages.
yeah.
Invented by American.
You know, Moses is also the prototype of Christ here.
Mhm.
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
Matthew.
Willing to put himself aside for,
Yeah, because God even said there will one come after you that is like you. So he was referring to it.
Yeah, Matthew tries to make that correlation, as does John. That's why when we go to Tabernacles, read John, Matthew and John, and see the connection.
Verse 15. So I turned and went down from the mountain while it was ablaze with fire, and the 2 tablets of the covenant were in my hands. When I looked, I saw that you had sinned against Yahweh your God. You had made yourselves an idol cast in the shape of a calf. You had turned aside quickly from the way Yahweh had commanded you. So I took the 2 tablets and threw them out of my hands, breaking them to pieces before your eyes. Now there's 2 things here. One, he talks about the way Yahweh commanded you. And we talked about before, what are the ways of God? The ways of God are the ways of the covenant. And when Psalms talks about this, you know, he constantly equates God's ways with his law. Because the law reflects God's ways, which is the way he lives, you know, based on his character. So if you want to live God's way, you live according to his law. Mike?
Prior to the tablets, which Moses was getting and written out to bring to him, prior to that, what were the commandments they were to follow?
They're not specified
Exactly.
exactly what.
So you broke the commandments, well, they didn't know any commandments.
Well, yeah, they did. Because you have creation mandates.
oral, yeah.
Okay, God creates, first command to be fruitful and multiply, which is coupled with marriage, which is coupled with you shall work 6 days a week, okay? Work implies honest dealings with people. You work for what you get. You don't steal it. You don't live off of somebody else. You work for things.
But how is throwing metal into a fire? I'm just kind of trying to see the Israelites' side from those down the mountain in Aaron. How is throwing metal into a fire and, you know, rising up this golden calf violating any of those?
Well, that, I don't think anybody believed that Aaron threw the gold in the fire and out jumped a golden calf. Okay, no.
They had to make a mold and cast it.
Okay,
Okay,
even so, I'm trying to see how, if they weren't given any commandments until Moses came down the mountain with the
But
tablets.
wait.
Whoa.
Well, no.
They
Go
already
to
had
the
them.
end, go to the end of verse 10. It says, with the exact words that Yahweh addressed to you on the mountain out of the fire on the day of the assembly.
Yeah,
He
that was in
they were
Exodus.
given the commands before he went up on the mountain where they were written on stone.
And they all agreed to follow them, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreement had come earlier in Exodus 19 where God says it's the sound of the trumpet. That's where he called all the people together.
yeah,
Okay.
God gave the covenant 40 days before this occurrence.
Oh,
Okay,
So
verbally.
they already had heard him.
Yes.
That's when Jewish tradition says that everybody on earth heard him speak. And it's the only time God ever appears to the world visibly. You know, and says, okay, here I am.
That's in here.
Okay, and the people say, we want a mediator, go away.
We're
But
scared
yeah,
to death.
40 days prior to this, they were given the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
Okay, and they agreed. Okay, then Moses goes up the mountain and they go, he's been gone a long time. We look up here and here's this fire, smoky thing. We think he's dead. Okay, because he didn't take any food or water with him. Okay, and yet 40 days later he comes down and says, you broke the covenant. So if you're talking way back about Abraham and Noah's day, there are no written specifications of all 10 commandments. The Noahic covenant in Genesis 9 does give some parts about justice and the establishment of human government. And there's enough history there to show that murder is wrong, and God doesn't approve of it.
Well, we had Cain and Abel for your prime example.
Right. Okay, so from the very beginning, there are certain sins that are spoken out against. Okay, so people have a tradition, at least of general ways of God. Okay, they just don't have all the specifics yet.
Okay.
Did they get their goofy idea of a calf from like Egyptian people that had,
The calf is probably the most common idol. The calf and the pregnant woman are like the two most common idols in history. Because the bull is a sign of strength, and the pregnant woman is a sign of fertility. Anyway, the other thing was, God had made known his ways to people because he tells Abraham, walk in my ways and be righteous. And then he very visibly takes the tablets of covenant and he smashes them to let the people know you broke the covenant. You didn't just fracture it, you broke it. You shattered
So
it.
he told them, said, let me write it down in case they forget it.
Okay, verse 18. Then once again I fell prostrate before Yahweh for 40 days and 40 nights. I ate no bread and drank no water because of all the sin you had committed, doing what was evil in Yahweh's sight, and so arousing his anger. I feared the anger and wrath of Yahweh, for he was angry with you enough to destroy you. But again Yahweh listened to me. And Yahweh was angry enough with Aaron to destroy him. But at that time I prayed for Aaron too. Also I took that sinful thing of yours, the calf you made, burned it in the fire, then I crushed it and ground it to powder as fine as dust, and threw the dust into a stream that flowed down the side of the mountain. If you ever watched The Naked Archaeologist, when he goes looking for this mountain, Mount Sinai, he goes into details that I had really not forgotten. I had never noticed that Mount Sinai had a river coming down the side. There was a spring, evidently a spring at the top, and there was water coming down. There would also be signs of fire at the top of the mountain. And if you actually go around and look, enough places that are not traditional places, there actually is a mountain where it has signs of fire at the top and of a spring running down the side of the mountain. Okay, and it has to be within a certain distance at certain places, like it's so many days journey, so you have like a radius to look in. And Simcha Yacobi has done an interesting job on that. If you ever watch it, it's an interesting story. It's not definitely not the traditional site that everybody says, oh, you want to go see the mountain? No, it's not the mountain. But
somebody's done an interesting what?
He didn't,
Study of the mountain?
yeah, they go to all the different mountains looking for the one that has all the right signs. And they found it, and it's not the one that if you visit Israel and they say, oh, you want to go see Mount Sinai? That's not the one they're going to take you to. They're going to take you to a different place. It's not the real site.
Well, and also you're not allowed to get in there anymore because it's in Saudi Arabia, correct?
Yeah, and it's fenced off.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
real mountain.
There's
real
a
one.
mountain that's fenced off in Saudi Arabia.
Well, it's got burns on the top, it's got signs of a humongous group of people having lived at the base of it with all kinds of shards and,
Yeah.
I mean, it really fits the
Monuments, I mean,
description, which is
altars.
why Sinai
The
has
altars are
they've
still there.
never been able to prove anybody was there, so they said, well, this must be a work of fiction.
Anyway, you can't always trust your tradition.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but it's always bothered me that Aaron gets to stay high priest. I mean, it just, here, he makes this golden calf, and yet God still is going to use him as high priest. But maybe it's because Aaron remembered what his sin was and never did it again.
Right.
Okay,
Well, he forgave Peter.
that's true. Yeah, God really is a forgiving God. Okay, if you're willing to turn back to him.
Well, Moses said that he also, in praying for Israel, also was praying specifically for Aaron.
Right.
And when they were dedicating everything, and the two boys, his two sons, made the unholy fire, and God said, "Don't even weep for him." He learned his lesson. He didn't. I mean, he kept right on.
Mhm.
And all those years Saul was trying to kill David. You get to end Saul's life, and he still went to heaven. He was saved.
Saul,
Don't.
Saul, yep.
how do you know that?
We
Don't
did
know
an
of any
in-depth
evidence
study
for
of that
that.
one time. And I said,
We'll take a look at that later time.
yeah,
I don't know,
Because
I don't know of anything that would indicate that. But it says that Yahweh listened to me. Okay, now, again, Moses is the example of Messiah. He's the precursor for Messiah. If Moses gets God's ear enough to forgive this kind of rebellion, what does that mean to you?
He might live and die.
That we have the Messiah to intercede for us, and Messiah is even better than Moses.
yeah.
So if you will repent, there is forgiveness.
But you always need that repentance.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, there was once a movie made, I think it was called Moses. Burt Lancaster played Moses, and they totally debunk the Exodus. And they do weird stuff like Moses ground up the idol and poured the idol dust into the stream coming down a mountain. In this movie, they have Burt Lancaster melting the gold into a pot and pouring it down people's throats. Okay, this was obviously an attack by Hollywood on the biblical story.
Yeah.
How many people don't know the real story and therefore thought Moses is this cruel, mean guy? And then also the manna. The manna is something that Burt Lancaster knows grows in the desert. It's a little plant or something that just pops up every morning, and he fed 6 million people off of it, right? Anyway, Hollywood is not our friend. Yes.
That was probably poppy plants.
Yeah, they're all hallucinating through the desert, yeah. And verse 22, verse 22, he says, "You also made Yahweh angry at Taberah, at Massa, and at Kibroth Hattaavah." Okay, so he's just reminding, there's more than that.